Welcome this week in Missouri Politics. This week from the state capitol in Jefferson City. We're actually in the office of the Lieutenant Governor, Mike Kehoe. Thank you for the hospitality.
Hey, we're glad to have you. Thanks for being here.
Congratulations on your election win, I guess last month now. Time's flying.
Yeah, it's a very humbling experience, as you know, based on my background. To be elected by all the citizens of the state was incredible, and something my wife and I will never forget.
Something you've been very active in this year is helping with the state's COVID response, retool some businesses, maybe even help folks have some of the PPE they need. Where does the state stand right now as far as when do you anticipate a vaccine? And I know there's been a lot of this left to the states. What is the plan for distributing the vaccine?
Well, you know, Governor Parson just a couple of weeks ago announced his plan to distribute the vaccine. Missourians can go on the website under Department of Health and see what that plan looks like right now. The next step that will happen is the feds approving that, which we expect to happen any day, on how they're going to distribute the vaccine, and then which, you know, critical care people will kind of be first in line, if you will. Seems like healthcare workers, folks in nursing homes seem to, from what I'm hearing, seem to be kind of the first people that we want to get to, the folks that are in that vulnerable population piece. And then we'll continue to go from there. But that's exciting news that we have that coming forward, and Missouri and Missourians will be ready. As you mentioned, we have many Missouri manufacturers in the PPE business now that weren't, you know, 9 months ago. And so big credit to them and their families and their communities for stepping up and helping us with that effort.
On the politics side, the governor's talked about a COVID liability law. There's been a lot of debate. Looks like maybe that's not going to be something that happens right away here in December. Why, if you're just a guy that maybe owns a gun store in West Plains, why does that COVID liability law matter to you?
Well, if you're anybody that owns any kind of business, from a school district to a hospital to a restaurant to a gun store to a manufacturer, I think what you want to know is that you have protections against something that nobody has any control over. And if you're a small business owner or manufacturer, like I said, that you want to have some peace of mind that if I open the doors of my business to sell a product or to manufacture a product, I am not going to be held responsible if somebody gets this virus, because the problem is it's very hard to pinpoint where did that come from. So, you know, employees are patrons of businesses. They also go to other places, to other venues, to work, to who knows where you get this thing from at this point in time right now. So I think it's important for businesses to understand that they have some protection. We always want people's day in court, which is the other side's argument, is that, you know, this eliminates Missourians from having their day in court. No, certainly if somebody's reckless, you know, that's a different story. We just want common sense protections for Missouri business owners across the state.
I was very excited to have you on this week because you know this state, it's in your blood. Maybe it's better than anybody else I know, from where you've lived to being your work with MoDOT to Lieutenant Governor and the Senate. This is a very diverse state, and there's a lot of talk even in the Senate today about there are places in the state that you pretty much are open, southern Missouri, northern Missouri, rural Missouri. Then there's places with some restrictions, even some rural counties like Lafayette County has some. Now Jefferson County has some, St. Louis County has quite a few. I've always tried to praise the response the administration's had on letting local governments decide. You know this state better than anybody. Why is that such an important thing?
Well, because we're not a one-size-fits-all state. You know, you can't paint the state of Missouri with one just big brush. And so letting local control happen to where local county commissioners or their health department directors or their hospital folks have gotten together and said, here's the reason we need to do this or not do this, that's where that authority needs to be. Those are the local people elected by the local folks, and they're the ones that should be making that decision. When you have a governor, any governor, whether it's a Republican or Democrat, whether it's this crisis or another crisis, and you give him or her that broad-ranged authority, you know, my question would be, what is next? There are other things out there on the horizon. For instance, I don't want the governor to tell me I have to get the vaccine. I want that to be my choice. I want that to be Missourians' choice. Now, I think a lot of people will get it, by the way, but I want it to be their choice. And it's the same with some of these other mandates.
Will you get the vaccine when it's appropriate and the first responders have got it and all that?
Yes. But everybody, there are a lot of frontline critical people that need to get it way before I do. So, but yes, I don't have a problem with it at all.
I really believe, and that maybe this comes from my background, if there's guys in Ripley County, if you told them to wear a mask, they start burning the things in front of the health department. You saw in St. Francis County, they found fewer people wore a mask when you ordered them around than when you asked them.
Right. Well, I think you're exactly right. And as you mentioned, we've traveled the state quite a bit. I like to use the example, we were at a broadband expansion announcement down in Iron County. And the announcement was held, for COVID reasons, the announcement was held outside on a sawmill, lumberyard, traditional Iron County, you've been to those sawmills before, parking lot, right? And so there's 20 people there, and they're from the telephone exchange, and the school superintendent's there, and some of the guys who work for the lumber yard are there. They're going to have high-speed internet, by the way, for the first time in their company's life. And everybody was spaced out. We're all outdoors, and folks on social media were, sending me notes. Why weren't you wearing a mask? Well, in Iron County, if you go there and say, I'm coming, but everybody needs to wear a mask, you might as not go. Because they're very much set in the ways of what they think is right and wrong, and they don't want government telling them what to do. And I don't really want to tell them what to do. But to your point, if you continue to educate Iron Countyans or Reynolds Countyans or Nottoway Countyans and say, here's something that could help, here's what you could do, here's what you could do, I think you get a much better take rate than you do of saying you're gonna do this.
I always thought you get a lot better out of us Midwesterners by asking instead of telling.
Right.
Something I've seen be an interesting development, this agritourism. It has been coming on and on. Tom Wright down in Miller County has a house. It's the darndest thing. It's just out in the field, and he rents it to Kansas City people, and they rent it every weekend. I'm like, is it on a river? He said, nope, it's just in the middle of the field. It's my dad's old place. I couldn't believe it, but that has been something that's not only been laying the groundwork for, but I think COVID has actually helped that industry, hasn't it?
Well, first of all, I've been to Tom and Dory Wright's cabin in Miller County. Just that probably doesn't surprise you, but it's a really cool place if you've actually been there. But agritourism is the #1 growing sector in our industry here, not only in the state, but the United States, because to your point, there's people from urban parts of this country who have never seen a cow up close, who have never seen a combine work out in the field, who have never seen, a hog farm. I had a legislator down from the Kansas City area to our farm, took her out on a gator and said, we're going to go check the cattle, had a bag of range cubes in the back. Cattle, of course, see the gator, smell the range cubes, come over, and she's snapping a million pictures, and she said, I can't wait to show my kids and all my friends this. I actually got to see a cow. I mean, and that person would have paid to go do that, and it was something I never even thought of, but agritourism sure is something that's gained some speed in our economy.
Talk about highways, something you've been involved for a very long time. I see the sign in your office, I-57. When Governor Parson was elected, you were elected. It looks like that's kind of the time when people get ideas early in that administration. That's usually when something big can happen. Is there a chance to do something to actually bring our infrastructure up to where it needs to be?
Yeah, I think that the governor's foundation of who he is going to be is workforce development and infrastructure, and we've made some progress in both of those areas. As you know, his bridge program that we did the bridge bonding for and infrastructure was a big hit to a lot of rural communities across the state where one of their bridges closed. It's a 20 or 30 mile detour. And so getting those bridges in safe condition is important. But to answer your question, I think our infrastructure piece of the conversation in the governor's first full term now will continue to evolve, and I believe we're going to see some ways to fix our funding problem. There's some new ideas that are running around out there. Some other states have tried, and more and more stakeholders are getting on board. The agriculture industry, the manufacturing industry are getting on board on how important it is to keep those roads and bridges open, and corridors like I-57, very exciting news that we could have down in your part of the world, down in southeast Missouri. We need to continue to advance that, and I'm literally don't want to leave this building until we figure out a way to fix that. And I'd like to leave, Scott, to get back to business and cattle and everything else. So that's not a threat to stay, that's a threat to get something done.
Well, you just got another 4 years in this building, and I have to wonder, you've been involved in government back when Republicans just didn't win everything automatically. Were you a little surprised by the election results? Not yours specifically, but how well the Republican Party did overall?
Well, in the state of Missouri, what I'll say is, and you travel the state a lot too, and you know what Missouri values are. And you go around the state of Missouri, and people who have Missouri values sometimes don't say, I'm a Democrat or I'm a Republican. They say, I'm pro-life, and I'm pro-Second Amendment, and I'm for common sense, and I want government out of my life. And then they voted for the candidates in Missouri that they thought that fit those good Christian family values. So I wasn't really surprised that it was so slanted to the direction of what I call the common sense direction. I think that was I think that's the way it leaned based on what the input I was hearing from all over the state.
Might not be a bigger supporter of first responders in the state than you. I mean, your office is filled with awards thanking you for it. I really thought that cut deep and was very hard for some state Democrats to carry that national message.
Yeah, I think it probably was. But, you know, the first responders, just to tell you quickly, if you're an Irish immigrant like our family was to North City, St. Louis, you were either a fireman or a policeman. And so, you know, I consider the fire and police community my family, and fortunately they consider me the same. So whatever I can do for those folks, I'm always happy to. But I know there was some mixed emotions based on who they were supporting nationally versus maybe who they were supporting on a statewide basis. But at the end of the day, you know, those are a great group of people, and I'm always going to be honored to have them on my side.
Governor, thank you so much for the hospitality. We really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Merry Christmas to you and your family, by the way.
Christmas to yours as well.